All right, back on the Porsche. Hopefully finishing some stuff up. Gonna weld in the exhaust rather than use that flex tube shit. I'm just gonna mock it all up under the car. And I have the other lower collector installed loosely right now. These are the manifolds that it came off of. Here's the old collector with the destroyed O2 sensor. So I'm gonna get the exhaust mocked up under here, and then I've got a piece of pipe I'm gonna fit. I'm gonna mark it, cut it to size, get under there. I'm gonna tack weld a couple of spots so it stays where I want it to. I'm gonna pull the whole thing out, and we'll weld it up. Hopefully, I have enough weld or wire. All right, so this angle is not 45 degrees. So what I'm going to do, I got new bolts on with plenty of anti-seize. Had to reuse the other gaskets that came off of this collector here because the gaskets I ordered were actually not the right size. So that's cool. Pretty pumped about that. But I'm just going to take this thing. I'm going to use flexi pipe temporarily just so I can run it in my garage. And then I'm going to take it to an actual muffler shop and let them do the work that needs to be done to it. So this O2 sensor, I got to splice in a wire. I'm going to use a butt connector so it doesn't mess with the ohm settings. And then I'm going to top off the oil, the transmission fluid, look at the coolant, throw a battery in, and give it a whirl with the different DME that I purchased. So we'll see if we fixed anything at all or if we're still back at square one. Okay, I don't know who to call on this, but probably the dumbest place to fill up an automatic transmission. So one more win for manuals here, because doing a fluid transfer, and I'm gonna have to get back under here once the car is running in order to cycle the gears, get it up to operating revolutions, so the torque converter's spinning, and have it pull fluid from the transmission and push it all the way up to the front of the car through the radiator for the transmission cooler and then back. So I'm gonna have to sit under here and just keep topping it off. Dumb design. All right, so yesterday had the transmission fluid topped off, the oil's topped off. It's actually probably a little high. Coolant's topped off. Went to start it. Got a glorious no spark solution. Just cranking and cranking. I changed the DME relay to another new one. I changed the DME out to a second DME that I have. Still no spark. I have brand new reference and speed sensor in there. So I stuck a camera, like a borescope, down the observation port. It is. Bummer. There's my speed and reference sensor mount. To the next of it is that little observation window. I was able to get a borescope down in there and I could see the speed sensor against the flywheel, and I was like, well, maybe the trigger on the manual flywheel is set up differently. So I rotated that around. I was able to measure it. It's the same distance that my automatic was at, and it lines up perfectly with the hole for the reference sensor. So that should be triggering the spark. And I gapped this thing. That's the tool that's in there. It's got a little 8mm 0.8 millimeter washer glued to the end of it. I've got it sitting in there. When I put the borescope down in there, I could see there was just miles between the sensor and the flywheel, and I put this in and it does not contact the flywheel at all. I don't know how that shifted when I was tightening it, but it did. So now that everything's completely put back together, I get to jam my hand down in here and probably spend most of the day trying to loosen the bolts so that I can adjust this. It's pretty annoying that this isn't a fixed position, but I feel like they could have come up with a design that was a little more static and not adjustable. I don't really understand the need for the adjustment, but whatever, it is adjustable. So I get to get my hand down in there and screw with this for this morning. So, all right, I can't believe it. Smoky as hell. Sounds pretty good. Little concerned though, fuel pressure is a little low. It's down around 30. I know it's supposed to be around 35, but we'll see what happens. Getting good spark. Getting 13.9, almost 14 volts at the battery. So I put a new voltage regulator in. This one was a little warm, but not bad. I don't have the airbox on, obviously, but I think the issue I was having is the cold air starter. I don't know what that thing's called. It's like what you use for cold start, but if I shut the car off, it will and start it again. It idles really, really rough until I gotta pump the gas for a minute, and then it snaps out of it. So I'm guessing it's the cold air, whatever that thing is called. I don't know. It's underneath the intake, but we'll see. Just letting it get up to temp to see if the fans kick on. That smoke is cleared right out of here. It looks like the temperature gauge is working, which is cool. It's pretty low on fuel. It's starting to creep up. I'm gonna see if this fan kicks on or not. Yeah, so I don't know. That looked really promising there for a minute, and then I shut it off and started back up, and it just has all kinds of issues. I was trying to test the idle air control valve, but this isn't one that opens like a fuel injector, so I don't really know how to test it. The car ran great. It was idling perfect. I'm not getting any tach bounce or anything like that. I've checked the reference sensor and the speed sensor. I think there's something wrong with the tach or maybe the wiring behind the dash. I don't know. It's not responsive at all, so no idea. But it started like shit, idling really rough, just like it was before. I changed out the DME. I changed out the DME relay, and it was doing the same thing. I gave it some throttle, and it kept bogging down, like it wasn't acting like it was revving at all. And then I hit it a couple more times, and it just snapped and was running perfect, like perfect idle. I mean, I'm assuming it sounded perfect. The throttle response was fine, and it just ran. And as long as I left it on, it was running fine. I was getting good charge at the battery. Well, 13.9 volts. I put in a new voltage regulator, but I'm still getting the alternator light is flickering on the dash for some reason. So I'm guessing there's some wiring issues behind the dash, possibly, or I don't know. But it was running great. Everything seems like it was running fine. I shut it off. I started back again, started back up immediately, and it's still bogging, running like shit. I come over here, I hit the throttle a few times, and it snaps again and just evens out, starts idling fine, no problems at all. I'm getting good fuel pressure at this gauge here. So everything seems like it's running fine. I'm not hearing any hissing or anything like that would like make me think there was a big vacuum leak or anything like that. It was idling great. I had smoke coming out the exhaust initially, and then that cleared out when it got up to temp. My thermo fan switch must be bad because it wasn't controlling the fans at all, or I have a bad relay. Not sure which. At the moment, if I bypass it, it'll turn on in kind of high speed on the driver's side. If I turn on the AC unit though, it should kick on both fans, and it doesn't. So the passenger fan only turns on if I hook it directly to 12 volts for some reason. So I don't know. There's some wiring issues still that I'm still going through, but my main concern is the idle, because when I shut it off again and started it again, it immediately was doing the same thing. Like if I start it right now, it'll do the same thing. It just idles like shit. I'll show you. I have the idle air control valve disconnected right now. It doesn't matter. It runs the exact same. The problem I'm finding with running it like that, trying to get it to kick into its mode where it's driving fine or running fine, is that to get there, I'm messing with the throttle a lot until it eventually clicks in. And what it's doing is it's dumping a lot of excess fuel down the exhaust. And that catalytic converter was red hot. I mean, glowing red. So I started seeing smoke in the cabin. I was like, oh no, that foam above the heat shield's probably melting a little bit. So I cranked the fan on, shut it down, and it was fine, no fire. I don't know. I thought maybe it was the idle air control valve. I've gone through the vacuum lines. That doesn't seem like it. I thought the firing order was messed up. I've gone through that a number of times. The O2 sensor is not currently hooked up, but that shouldn't be causing this. Maybe higher fuel consumption at the moment, but not this. And I've played with this. I've ohmed it out. I've got a new temperature switch, coolant switch. I've got a new throttle position switch, different DME that was rated as good, and honestly, it ran fine. So I think it ran just like it did with the other DME I had in. So I'm not really sure. The only thing that's weird, obviously, is the tack isn't working. I'm not getting anything off it at all, so I'm not sure. I don't have an oscilloscope, so it's not like I can hook it up to the meter and make sure it's reading correctly. I did re-gap it. It's gapped correctly. So yeah, drop it in your comments if you have an idea. I've had to unhook all the grounds, plug them all back in, so I checked the grounds. They're good as far as I can tell. I've got good continuity between the block and the battery. I've tested that out with a light. So it seems like I have good ground everywhere. I don't have any blown fuses. They're all brand new relays for the most part. There's like one relay in there that I think is for, actually I think it's for the air conditioner. And that might be why the thermo fan switch isn't working. I don't know. It got up really hot though, and this wasn't kicking on. So I bypassed it when it was idling just fine. And that kind of kept the temperature down a little bit. The other fan wasn't kicking on at all. So I'm going to have to research where these resistors are or whatever. This is an early 944. It's an 84. But yeah, I am a little stumped at the moment. And I just started it up a little bit ago and did something I don't love doing, but I shot ether down around here where all these vacuum lines are just to see if the engine would pick up at all, and it did not. So I'm assuming I did in fact fix all of the vacuum leaks. I mean, I went through every hose I could find. So they've all been replaced or checked. And they're honestly all in pretty good shape. I don't know, there's some weird... I don't know what this thing is. It looks... It's part of the vacuum system, some type of a switch. I don't know what it does. Anyway, I have no idea if it works because I don't know what it does. It just looks like it's in between two vacuum ports here. So, near as I can tell, it doesn't do a lot. It runs up into that T. So it is part of the vacuum system, some type of a valve. I don't know. I don't know what it's for. Anyway, if you have any thoughts or whatever, I'm going to keep thinking around with this, check some electrical stuff, banging on stuff. It was idling perfect, as you can see in part of this video. So I think we're close, but we're also kind of like exactly where we were when I started this whole project, because that was the same symptoms I had initially, where I thought it was the throttle position switch. Yeah, I don't know. I do know the engine's good. I've checked compression on all the cylinders, and honestly, like when it was idling today, it was idling great. No backfire, no spit, nothing. And it was steady, smooth. So I know it can run. I just don't know what is causing it not to run right. So drop your comments in there. Let me know. It's kind of a long video.